Yeah. Yeah, we can go.
Okay. Welcome to the Housing Commission, November 27th, 2023 Special Housing Commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with Housing Commission members, city staff and members of the public participating in the conference room, as I will call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. So right now we'll take roll call. I would like to introduce the staff and Housing Commission members present. Housing Manager Tim Wong and Management Analyst Adam Patterson. Commissioner Campos. Present. Commissioner Leach. Here. Commissioner Merriman. Here. Myself and Commissioner Pimentel. Here. Commissioner Portillo. Here. And Vice Chair Walker. Chair Walker is not here. Okay, so, Tim, would you please provide instruction to the Housing Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Okay, so thank you, Chair Arnett, and the members of the Housing Commission. Welcome everyone to the November 27th special meeting of the Housing Commission, and thank you for attending. Staff will engage cameras and microphones to make presentations and respond to members of the Housing Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment on an item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, for virtual participants, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 for those in person, and please complete a speaker card and bring them to staff. And so that concludes the instructions, and I turn the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
So first we have item C1, a presentation from the Bellhaven Community Development Fund. Housing Manager Tim Wong, will you introduce the item, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So, if the Housing Commission recalls, last December, the city issued a NOFA for approximately $2 million. The city received 4 applications for that, and the Housing Commission made recommendation in August of 2023. Consistent with the process, the city received another NOFA application through our over-the-counter process from Bellhaven Community Development Fund. And so as part of the evaluation process, they are here to give a presentation their proposal, and would like to remind the Housing Commission and members of the public that no action will be taken this evening. It is solely for the applicant to propose or present what they're proposing to the Housing Commission, and then staff will make do its review and make a recommendation on the proposal and bring it back to the Housing Commission at a further date. So again, no action will be taken, and this is strictly a presentation on the proposal. So I would like to introduce Juanita Croft. She's the advisory board chair of the Bellhaven Community Development Fund, and Marlon Santoyo, who's the administrative assistant. So let's get the PowerPoint presentation. Welcome to stand. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing the Bellhaven Community Development Fund to bring forth this proposal. I do want to introduce us as a program. And so, next one. Please. We've been in in Bellhaven as a nonprofit for, 10 years. And so, much of that time, was spent, we started off early on with the Bellhaven mini grant program that we support for the city. And so that's been one of our primary programs and initiatives. And we see ourselves as brokering, resources and, bringing the community together to work on common goals. And, so as part of that, we do, quite a bit of fundraising or working with different scholarships, setting up different programs based on the fundraising that we're able to do in addition to the mini grant program that we've been providing. We envision Bellhaven as a community that can advocate for itself, because I have to say that I have been in this community for over 65 years. And I grew up here, and so I've been through, and I've lived in Bellhaven most of that time. So, I'm pretty much involved with trying to bring, environmental justice issues forward. And so this is one of those kind of issues for us that we're fighting. We want the community to have more of a voice in the city of Menlo Park, to be able to, promote things that are important to the community, as much as possible. Yes, please. Okay, yeah. We are a nonprofit, as I mentioned, we've been around for 10 years. And we are the program administrator of the Bellhaven Neighborhood Mini Grant Program. Each year, we work with our fiscal sponsor to set up the program. We go through a process every year of completing an MOU with the city, setting up the support services and initiatives that we need to support our community through the process. We have an application process. We also have a committee that reviews all of the applications that the residents present, and they make their recommendations. And then we then finalize it and submit a final report to the city in terms of how the money was distributed and what kind of projects and so forth that people are working on it in terms of their mini grant project. Thank you. We have done some other advocacy kind of work in our community. So early on, one of the first things we were doing, even before we became a nonprofit, was to host a college and career fair, technical fair at Oneida Harris. And we also raised funds to provide recreational scholarships for youth 3 to 13 years of age in our community there. In the effort of workforce development, we are working with Wendy's Palo Alto in their sponsored employment program so that we can hire Bellhaven residents for that program. And then, of course, the Bellhaven mini grant program, which we have been administering for 10 years. So now getting into our proposal for the Menlo Park tenant rental assistance. And mainly we are focusing on residents who are under qualification. In other words, those who fall into the category of very low and extremely low. Yes, thank you. Extremely low income, because the new housing is set up in such a way that they are not able to necessarily qualify even for the low income affordable housing. Okay. And so we wanted to see if we could kind of figure out a way to remove the gap that exist between the actual, category that they're in, versus what is now the minimum in terms of, what qualifies. So first of all, I just wanted to, talk about the median household income by percentages and what that means in San Mateo County specifically. Menlo Park is actually higher than San Mateo County in terms of, median income. And so, and that's not taken into account on this, right? So, as you can see, it's 153, over 153,000 is the San Mateo County housing, median income. And for this year, 2023, I put this off their website and provided this. And so many of our residents, and I base this partly on the mini grant program because we do demographic surveys as part of our mini grant program. And we know that we have families that make $20,000, under $30,000 in our community. So I was already aware of that. And so looking at it from the perspective of what's Section 8 housing, which is normally what we've had in the past always, they did go down to 15% at some time in the past. And so that would put many of those people who fall into that category would fall into this, I don't even know what they call it, 15%. The excessively low. Yeah. Acutely. Is it acutely? Oh, okay, thank you for that term. I'll have to add that here, acutely low.
That says something.
Yeah, I've been looking for stuff all over, doing the research on which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
To say the least, you have to go to so many places, and then, people are using different ways of looking at it, right? And so, so that took me a while to kind of factor all of that in. So one of the things I did was a comparison between Mid-Penn Gateway, the rising, Gateway Rising housing versus Springline, which is one of the developments that have below market rate rentals, and to compare how much those rentals would be. And so as you.
Oh, the next slide.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. So as you can see, the one bedroom for Mid-Penn, and they're just looking at it in terms of range, is, under, starting off under 800 and then going up to about 1,700. And as you can see, the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom. In looking at Springline, everything, the AMI is 80%. They're just looking at low income. That's it. Just the 80%. And so you can see that the rent is over $2,000 or over $3,000. So if our residents who were displaced or move out of low income housing had to find a place, and we were reliant on DMR rental, we find that they wouldn't be able to afford to move into that kind of housing. And so, and so I know that right now Mid-Penn is in the process of finalizing applicants. They're in the looking at the right of first refusal, and they also have a waiting list also as well. And then for Menlo Park, we have other developments, as I mentioned, that provide just low income housing. But as I said, most of them are beyond the reach of residents who fall into our very low and low, extremely low and acute. Yeah, and really out. So this is just to kind of, take you through why we chose offering this opportunity. Okay, so what we're proposing, and we just wanted to highlight the basic things. So one is subsidies for local households. So we're mainly concerned with people who live and or work in the city of Menlo Park. Okay, because we know that we have residents who, just barely make minimum wage, and that income isn't enough really to live in Menlo Park. And so we're trying to hopefully, provide them with a way of finding some housing that's clean and healthy and all of that, and be able to live in it for some time. We're recommending 20 units in terms of, or households, you might think of, that we would serve over what is, we're looking at a 60-month duration, because we're looking at this as a study, an opportunity to really see how residents in our community that are very low income or below 50% AMI, how they would, if their housing would look like, whether or not, what the outcomes would be of that. And then we're also looking at a maximum disbursement though of $1,200 per month, and then a maximum number of months of 60, I mentioned, with a total estimate of 1.4 million to do that. Now, we are anticipating that, we're not gonna have 20 people like right away. So this would be over a 5-year period. So I would assume that in the first couple of years, we have most of the people come in, but there may be, others. Because we're looking at a very specific type of resident, right? That's below a certain thing, has been displaced and all of that. And I noticed on, I think it's Springline's website, that there are quite a few documents that people have to fill out. So if they're not working, or if they're not, anything that's unusual, they have to fill out a form for. So all of that would also be taken into consideration on the project. Okay, program implementation. Mainly, we're looking to model the program similar to how we worked with the Belhaven Mini Grant program. We feel like that's been a good working arrangement for us, and we have been able to disperse over 10 years, over 140 plus mini grants and so forth. And so much of this is very similar to how we implement things with the city for that. So we do work with the city to establish requirements. So the city always has very specific things that they want to see. And so we do work with the city on that, the process and the timeline for the pilot program. So all of that would be worked out as part of the MOU, including requirements for data collection from property managers and residents. So at the end of the mini grant, I submitted a report that talks about the whole process, not only who received the grant, but what we did, who was on the committee, and all of those kinds of things. We've generated an MOU with the city to use the BMR funds for the pilot program. We set up the tools needed to implement, so providing a website, application, all of those kinds of things that we need. We also use a variety of communication purposes so that residents or people can either contact us by text or phone or email or things like that. So we try to reach everyone in our community, and we do fortunately have, especially with Marlon, Spanish speakers who can talk to the largest minority in our community. We work with our fiscal sponsor, the study center, to establish a process for implementation in terms of making sure we have all of the requirements that they need as well, because they're fiscal sponsor and state and federal government issues to contend with. So we work with them very closely on that. We'll initiate a disbursement of monthly checks and then conduct annual audits and reports on the program performance and things like that, and then engage the city attorney and city managers when issues arise. So, for example, in the mini grant program, if a resident is thinking about doing something and we're not sure if it fits the guidelines that we've been given, then we will approach the city and talk with them about it, and then see what we can work out. Sometimes the resident does end up meeting with somebody at the city as well, but we like to advocate for our residents. So, this would be, another critical part of our participation in the program. Okay, and that is it for the presentation. Thank you.
So now this item is open for public comment. Please, Adam, do we have any? Public comment?
Thank you, and thank you, commissioners. Can you hear me? I see a face. Can you hear me? I can't tell if you can hear me or not. Can someone say something?
Julie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me? You can't hear me at all, huh? Oh, I don't know what's wrong. Let me how about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm still talking.
Julie, can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me? Okay, I see my face. Can you hear my voice?
I'm just gonna put you on back on mute, Julie, and see if another commenter we can hear them. Next commenter is eminent domain.
Hello. It's been a while since eminent domain has been on the scene. I believe I have 3 minutes, right? Ah, there we go. I see a clock. Can you hear me? I can't hear anybody. Oh wait, now I can hear you. All right. Well, I guess I'm just gonna keep speaking.
Eminent domain.
Yeah, I think I can hear you guys, but you can't hear me.
Can't hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Anybody?
Okay,
I'm unmuted.
yeah,
You can hear me.
yes.
All right, we got it sorted out. Way to go, IT. Right, first order of business. I just want to raise the issue of protections that will be offered for current residents and renters that will be displaced by developments in the proposed housing element. So I'm requesting that the city council add an amendment to the housing element that protects our right to continue to rent at a rate no greater than our current rate, and to be offered compensation for opportunity cost of relocation during the time of construction, assuming that multiple or many housing existing housing structures will be torn down for the construction of higher density buildings. And I just have an additional question, if someone could answer it. What does it mean for a site to be part of the 6th cycle housing element inventory? I assume there's been 5 cycles before. Is this the 6th cycle? But just clarification on that would be appreciated.
Excuse me, sir. Thank you for your comment, but these public comments are towards the presentation at hand. And
I'm sorry, I will comment on the other part then. I didn't mean to take up time.
I just wanted to add, if you wish to have these comments heard by the council is meeting tomorrow about housing element update, specifically zoning changes for the sites. And so these comments would be more appropriate for tomorrow's meeting.
I see. Okay, I'm in the wrong meeting.
Yes.
Okay. My apologies. Eminent domain will return at a future
Okay,
time.
thank you for your comments.
Thanks for your comment.
And yes,
Cheers. Bye-bye.
all right, bye-bye.
All right, now we have Julie Shanson. Sorry about that, Julie. Oh, sorry. I accidentally muted you.
Hi, how about now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. I'm going to lower my hand, but that just means you called on me. I wanted to urge the Housing Commission to consider this proposal from the Bellhaven Community Development Fund. If you do the math on someone who works a minimum wage job at $16.50 or $17 an hour, they cannot afford to live in the most affordable housing that we have in Menlo Park unless they have gotten a project-based voucher. And to do that, they would have had to use their crystal ball 3, 4, 8, 10 years ago to apply for some such voucher. So we really don't have a way to remedy the fact that we have so many people who are not in the middle. In Menlo Park, the missing middle really is missing. We have very rich people. We have people who don't consider themselves very rich, but still manage to live in Menlo Park. And we have people who can't pay the rent on the most affordable housing that we have. So I strongly recommend that the Housing Commission think outside the box with a proposal like the one just put forward today. And I hope that this pilot will show that with policy, we can eliminate the need to subsidize rent on affordable housing because the housing offered will truly be affordable. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Let's do one more public comment. John Pimentel. John, can you hear us?
I can. I just wanted to listen in on the meeting. I couldn't be there, but I wanted to participate. So I have no questions. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for your comment.
Yes. So, yeah, this concludes the public comment section. This item is now open for Housing Commission clarifying questions and discussion. It is an informational presentation and therefore there is going to be an action taken on this item. Yes, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I really, I think it's a great program. I do have a question. I think, Julie mentioned that some of the residents, don't get paid enough to be able to pay for the rent. And there's no Section 8 availability. If any of those residents that do apply for this program, does it matter if they have a Section 8 voucher? Will this kind of kick in? How will that kind of combine or work together, or will it not work?
It depends on the how, you know, the housing developer, basically, in terms of that. We would add a letter, to verify that the person is eligible and will receive a certain amount of money over a certain period of time. It had to be a minimum of 2 years.
Yeah,
And so there is added, so that their income eligibility would reach the level that they needed at, like, for mid-10 instead of 55%.
yeah.
So,
I ask because there are some elderly, that actually have an SSI and then they have a Section 8, and then Midhead happens to be the property owner, but they kind of work the percentages. And even if you guys were to pay, let's say, 500 out of the amount that they have to pay, that leaves them with some extra money that they can utilize. you know, for the elderly, because I think that's where the meeting maybe probably is at the same time, because a lot of the elderly that I know in Bellhaven don't get a lot, I mean, they get SSI, but it doesn't really constitute like the expenses they have to do and then being rent and then they have a section 8. Okay. So that's my first question. May I ask another question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My next question. The program that you are proposing, it's a pilot program, it's gonna be for 60 months, and that means that those individuals that actually apply for this program for those 60 months, you will be giving them a voucher of 1,200 or paying the rent if they don't have, you know, a section 8 and stuff like that, is that, okay? That's all I needed to know. Thank you, there wasn't a question, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Want to say, appreciate your presentation.
No, thank you.
And I just stress that we have to keep coming up with terminology. So lower and lower percentages. That implied that there are things to help.
I've got a few questions if everyone's done. Thank you for the presentation. It was well researched, well presented. I appreciate it. Maybe we could go back. Is it possible to pull up the presentation slide? This is, you know, I had some comments on the information and kind of, if this comes back, I want to give staff a little bit of a preview as to some things that would be great to get more information about. If it works for you. That one I think is good. I think, you know, and it's probably helpful to know that my employer's Midpenn Housing and that I work deeply on this project for something like 10 years. And I'm proud of it, and I see that there's many areas where it's able to meet community needs, and then I think there's other places where city policy could be tuned up to deal with this issue that we've all been kind of tiptoeing around, which is that as incomes jump up 10% year after year after year, you stretch out what these things mean and you think, oh, low income, that must be low income. And then you see that low income here is $150,000 a year. And that very low income for a family of four is $90,000 a year, which is 3x the minimum wage. So this is something that's happening all over California, but it's happening almost most intensive here. And that we only really build housing for the top 20%. You know, we will get a 700% production on above moderate that was gonna, you know, it exacerbates it. So it's up and down the peninsula. This is a trend, but it's most exaggerated here. We should own that. Thank you. I think that that's part of what you set us up to be able to talk about today. In most places, what I see is a strategy to try to reach different income levels that's set forth by the city and kind of holds this strategy. And that looks something like market rate developers usually will continue to build. The housing element we hope will continue to remove barriers to do that. This missing middle, however you want to define it, like we need strategies as a community to be able to make progress, and there's different strategies for every different band. And because we have so few projects that are coming forth with lower income units or lower than above moderate, sometimes I think we are trying to kind of cram in like every public policy goal on the few projects that are coming forth. But what would be helpful is as you get up to speed, to kind of think of it in a bigger picture, as you know, these types of our VMR agreements with Springline, they're going to really serve people who are in that 60 to 80%. And projects that are either eligible for tax credit or other county subsidies or project-based vouchers, they're going to serve lower income groups. and identify where we have these holes, because I think you're right, that we have these holes. There will be additional strategies to kind of work with every group that we have, and, you know, hopefully as a commission, I think most of us take that full spectrum that we believe that, you know, pretty much 100% of people here deserve more housing options than what we have. And, it's like it's a universal situation here in California. So, you know, I'm heartened to see this. In general, I'm really supportive. I think there's also a few things that if the city could do a little bit more digging and due diligence on, it would be perhaps set up for understanding kind of how this in the long term impacts the city. Some questions I have, and this is really kind of the tip of the iceberg, is I saw the request for 1.4 million, but if staff has an idea as to how or where that would fit into and be funded, I think that would be helpful to know.
Okay.
That's mostly a clarification. I think that that's permitted under the funding that we have, but sometimes that's a city attorney question, and that would be also helpful to know if the city attorney supports us and thinks that we can use BMR and LEAD funds to fund this. If that's what I think, is that what the proposal is hoping for, or are you agnostic as to the source that would be used? No, it is specific to the BMR. That would be
funding, really to use it in a way that would actually help your residents.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in seeing how this goes. The other questions I have is basically like, what happens after 60 months? Like, is there some thought as to the transition? Or is there a hope that the pilot would be renewed and
It may be a different program.
yeah.
One of our goals is that we always try to make sure we're helping our residents as much as possible. So if, you know, if it looks like, as part of this, we would also be doing more research on developments that are in the area, looking at the housing stock, right? Because right now we know that very few, even BMRs are being added to the mix. If it wasn't even in, you know, you got nothing. Yeah, we would include supporting the residents in terms of transition. Yeah.
And if I can add to that too, because I think you touched on it, where policy can be updated to kind of those some of this, and for the meantime, it's kind of like people need help at the moment. We can also do that in the long run. How can we work on when trying to find more information and research to aid some of the changes that you want in the larger like stands, like in the meantime, I can control our
Yeah, so I think maybe it would challenge staff to think through a little bit, you know, does this set the city up for an obligation ongoing? What if you get something in at the maximum of 1,200 and then the rents raise up a little bit each year and they're kind of falling behind and there hasn't been movement in terms of they may have nowhere else to go. We certainly see that employers see that with residents, especially seniors, they move in and they usually don't leave us unless they needed the additional assistance or something like that, because there's so few options. So I think that would be really helpful to understand.
I'd also like to say, having been a resident here for a long time, growing up here, I didn't realize that most of the people I was going to school with were renters. They've been living in the community for over 20 years. When I found out, and so this makes it even more critical because not as many of us, people of color, actually still own And especially, it's harder for young people to buy, so most of the ones that do own are the, older adults like myself that has been around all this time. So, for me, that's part of the reason why it's critical, because, you know, renting is how people live, have lived here since the fifties. And so if we make it sort of like that, I know what science programs, it's like in space, okay, it's moving away from us faster than we can run to catch it. So it's that kind of a thing that we're just making things out of reach for our residents, and nothing is being done about that part. To help them, it's about sort of a last minute kind of, let's see what we can do here, you know, and so we're not really helping the numbers.
Well, then, just have two more points, if we could get through that. One is that, I'm not sure if it will stay in, but one of the pieces of the David Chu authorizing legislation for the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority relates to being able to fund tenant protections. And that, if it passes in November, could be a long-term source of funding that could potentially come in and backfill or relieve a little bit of stress from what might be either actual or perceived city obligation to, you know, the federal project based Section 8 voucher also needs to be renewed regularly. And it's somewhat at risk of being reviewed. And yet legislators for the most part feel that it would look really bad for them to have lines of people being displaced as a result of not renewing it. You know, that's the worst case scenario that I'm picturing there, but it is people who are very needy that you don't want to end up in a position where they're eventually going to be cycled out. So that's just one thing to look at. And then going back to the overall city strategy, and I'm really grateful that you've joined our team so that it can start to work together to put in place some potential policy changes that might address what you hopefully quite succinctly, which is like trains leaving the station faster than we can catch it, right? And so, you know, what are the tools available to the city to either solve this in the short term or solve it in the long term, either through deeper targeted affordability on upcoming projects, wherever those are. A lot of times those are either like for Springline, it's they don't have an obligation to go below 80% unless they bring in agreement here and get that feedback and kind of work that out. But it's not really in the statute for them to do that. And I think with respect to most affordable developers, they're really amenable to that, but they need to have potentially higher levels of subsidy per unit in order to get that. And that sometimes is a dance, and it sometimes changes both from the beginning to the project to the end based on project financials. So like if a project hits all of its milestones and is on budget and doesn't have a single change order with their contractor, because that could actually happen, right? Like, then there may be funds available to try to bring down the affordability lower. And those are some longer term solutions. And I'm in favor of shorter term and longer term solutions, but I'm grateful to be able to have this conversation with this. Thank you.
And just to answer one question real quick, earmark funds, an eligible use is rent subsidies to reduce the cost for rent. So just to point that out, but the other points you highlighted, we will consider as part of our analysis of this proposal.
So we are now up to the regular business, D section. Under regular business, the Housing Commission received informational presentation in addition to considering policy matters and administrative actions. Are there any separate questions from the Housing Commission on item D1?
Are we on, we're not on D1 yet. Does she want to get close up?
Right here. This one is clarifying with so, everyone, accept the housing commission minutes for June 7th, 2023, before taking public comments. On this item.
I just a point of clarification, it's, so I'm reading it right, that it's June 7th, 2023. Okay.
We're, a little backed up on. There it is.
So this item is now open for public comment. This is regarding meeting minutes for June 7th, 2023. Tim, do we have any public comment?
No, don't call it.
Michael, and I think.
You're, yeah.
So this item is now open for housing commission, clarifying questions and discussion. This is regarding the minutes of June 2nd.
Sorry, it's from June 7th because you were saying that you're a little behind in writing up the minutes.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Hopefully we'll gonna have the next meeting, we'll have a larger batch.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so I wasn't here for this one. Looks like it was very productive.
Do we have a motion and a second for this stated motion?
And motion to approve the.
In the second? I have to take a-
Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Leach.
Yeah, I wasn't here. Does that matter if I wasn't here?
I don't think so. We will need your. So please, it doesn't, no, yeah, it's okay if you weren't here.
Okay. Yes, I.
Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Chair O'Malley.
Aye.
Commissioner Pimentel, absent. Commissioner Portillo.
Aye.
Vice Chair Walker, absent. Motion passes 5-0 with 2 absent.
So now we are up to item D2. Housing manager Tim wants to introduce the item, please. The item is now, for you. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Director O'Neill. We'll bring up the presentation. Tonight, I would like to present to you the Housing Commission, some proposed VMR guideline revisions. And yeah, so tonight, staff is requesting that the Housing Commission consider the VMR guideline revisions and then make a recommendation to the council to accept the proposed VMR guideline revisions. Understanding that we don't have the actual language, what we're going to go through today is a pretty detailed introduction or presentation about what staff is proposing, and be more than happy to bring back the actual language to the Housing Commission at a future meeting next year. But one of the reasons for this special meeting, and thank you for accommodating staff for this meeting, is we want to take these guidelines to the council as quickly as possible by the end of this year, actually. So that's the overview. Next slide. And just in background, these guideline revisions come out of the city had in the past some difficulties with some potential sellers, in that the current VMR guidelines for new sales were not that clear. There were steps, but they weren't as clear or detailed as staff would like. So these are very focused revisions that pertain specifically to new sales or condo conversions that developers may convert from apartment rentals to condominiums for sale. And so again, these are focused on quote unquote new BMR sales, condo conversions. We did not touch BMR rentals or any other aspects of the program. It's more to focus on the sales process. And Commissioner Merriman mentioned that there in the future to explore different ways to target different income levels. Part of that will be a more comprehensive BMR guideline update for element programs, which will state that the city will be reviewing its BMR guidelines to reflect housing element programs and policies. And I'm just reviewing these guidelines. I think they need some updating. So in the next 2 years, the city will be entering into a more comprehensive review in which we can look at different factors such as BMR rentals, what income group wants the city would like to target, those type of things. So that's in the future. Next slide. So, and I have a summary slide at the very end, but these are some of the proposed revisions that staff is proposing. And again, these are in response to issues that staff may have had with previous sellers because of the kind of general guideline or vagueness. So section 4.12 talks about the sales process, and as staff proposes this, we will specifically state when the BMR price is to be calculated. And I will go into detail a little bit more about that whole process. And also section 5.1 and 5.2, those in the existing guideline talk about BMR units must be of the same size. And section 5.2 talks about all BMR units must be of the same comparable quality, such as appliances, flooring, those type of things. And so section 5.1 and 5.2 are further clarified to say that those items need to be specified in the building plans. So there is no additional confusion in the future that the city can always go back to the plan and say, look, you said stainless steel, what's with the, and leave it at that. Or why is it carpeting when all the other have hardwood floor, or something along those lines. But it specifically points out to make sure that the BMR units are comparable in all aspects. Section 5.4 talks about how the city will calculate its BMR sales price. In other words, what factors go into the BMR sales price, such as the HOA dues or the amount of HOA, which significantly impact the sales. It says that the housing expenses cannot go for more than 30% of household income, and all those factors put together make up the BMR value formula, and that's further clarified in these revisions. In addition, it requires the use of a BMR administrator in that we have hired a BMR administrator, and it requires that both parties, they will represent both buyer and seller. So there's no, but it does give the option for the developer if they want to hire an outside counsel, but that is on their own expense. It does require that the buyer use BMR administrator. The reason we said that a BMR administrator is used is because this is the first time home buyers program, and this is a BMR program. The home buying process is already complex enough, especially as a first time home buyer. So we hired a BMR administrator who has experience dealing with first time home buyers. And also the BMR administrator is familiar with the city's BMR process. And so for those reasons, we require that the buyer work with our BMR administrator. We bring in too many outside parties. We can see, especially if they're not familiar with the city's BMR process, that could lead to, let's just say, inefficiencies in the sale. So that's section 5.4. Section 5.4 has additional language to detail the city's rights during the right of refusal. If there's any issue, the city has a right of first refusal to purchase the property, but it further outlines when the city can exercise that right. Section 7.1 had some previous exceptions. This is a first-time homebuyer program, and there were a couple exceptions of how they could not be a first-time home buyers, and we basically removed them. If you go back to the original guidelines, it stated something like if they had relocated more than 50 miles away, that was an exception to being a first-time home, and they bought a unit that was 50 miles or more away from Menlo Park, they could still be considered a first-time home buyer. We have removed that exception. That is an example of the proposed revision. And section 7.2, since it's a first-time home buyer program, attending a first-time home buyer seminar is required, and this provides the timeline of when that applicant needs to attend. They can't attend a home buyer course by the end of escrow. They have to attend it in the very beginning, so they get the full benefit of understanding what it means to go through the home buying process. Next slide. And currently the city has a legacy list in which it's basically a waiting list that was closed in 2021, and per council discussion, any future BMR sales must go through the legacy list first, but some of those legacy participants have been on the legacy list since 1997. And so this gives city additional abilities to cull the list over time and how, but it's clear if we will update annually, and if they don't respond within a certain period, they are removed. And so instead of continuing to maintain this legacy list, not in perpetuity, but longer than it needs to be, I think. And section 8.2, the proposal is we will first go with the legacy list for all BMR sales until the legacy list has been completely used or expired. We've given them a chance to purchase. They don't purchase or they pass it up. We can't give them multiple chances, or if like we send out an update, they don't respond. But there are, when the legacy list is expired, or there's certain thresholds from the legacy list, it gives the city an option to do a marketing plan to look for additional home buyer applicants. And in the marketing plan, certain requirements are listed in the marketing plan, such as has to be 2 languages, 2 most Spanish, and whatever the second most common language in Menlo Park is. We've had an internal discussion about what that may be, but listing it on Redfin, putting it on the city website, so everyone has equal opportunity as part of the marketing plan to apply for the BMR unit. Section 8.3, it just specifies that you have to get a 30-year loan. And you can't get a seven-year adjustable rate. It has to be a fixed rate. Section 8.4 clarifies application submittal requirements. One of the requirements that we are including requires that they be pre-qualified for a loan while submitting an application to expedite the home buying process. So if they come in, we know that they have been pre-qualified by a preferred lender of the city. And section 9 outlines greater steps in the new BMR sales. And the next slide. And there are multiple steps. On your left is the current process, which we use for new sales. And you can see on the right, it has been greatly expanded. The number of steps in the process, or it has been expanded to greater detail with specific timelines about the sales process. And this gives certainty to both the home buyer and the developer. So the first step is roughly 6 months prior to the final inspection, or if the units don't need an inspection. And as a reminder, these are for new units, they're not for resales. If a unit does not need an inspection 6 months prior to anticipated sale, they have to notify the city. And within 90 days of that notice, the city has to provide the BMR sales price based on that specified formula that we are also proposing. And once the sale price has been determined, we will start marketing through a certifying letter. And the certifying letter says the unit has met all the BMR requirements. And based on that certifying letter, the developer in a timely fashion has to submit this contract and also a marketing plan if needed. So it really starts the home buying process. And within 10 days of the marketing plan, if a marketing plan is needed, the developer implements the marketing plan, they market. Applicants have 45 days to submit an application with new application requirements. And based on the legacy list or a lottery, if it's through a marketing plan, the first applicant gets introduced to the developer, and once saying, we found you a buyer, here's applicant A, the developer must produce a purchase agreement within, I believe, 10 days of that introduction. And if the home buyer has up to 10 days to respond or revise the purchase agreement or sign the purchase agreement. But for whatever reason, if the applicant does not sign the purchase agreement within 21 days, then they forfeit their ability to purchase, and we move on to the number 2 ranked. And the whole process starts again. And there is also a provision if there's no application, no one wants the unit, there's a provision that is proposed to recalculate the BMR price, basically lowering the price to make it more attractive. So those are, you can see on the right-hand column, those are the proposed changes. On the left-hand column is the current process. And so you can see that there's much more specificity in the proposed steps to make sure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to those guidelines. And again, I'll be happy to provide you the actual language once it goes to council, the approved language, but the approved language will reflect all these different proposed steps. Next. And so that summarizes the proposed changes. Again, the recommendation is staff requests that the Housing Commission consider the proposed BMR guideline revisions and to make a recommendation to the council on the proposed BMR guidelines. That concludes staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions that the Housing Commission may have in regards to these proposed guidelines.
I just had a question about 7.1, you mentioned the, removes the exception, the requirement, that a new BMR line must be that if they have bought a home more than 50 miles away, they're not qualified. I just don't, just some clarification on that.
So,
Is that like if they moved away because they've been kind of driven out or?
yes, and if they purchase somewhere more than 50 miles away, that would not be considered, that would be an exception that was proposed to be removed because even though this is supposed to be a first-time home buyers and since they owned a home 50 mile or 75 miles away, they own a home. And so this exception was in place, but we decided to remove it.
Has anyone ever used that?
Not that I'm aware of, because we really don't have that many BMR sales in general. And I'll be honest, I do not know the basis for this exception.
I mean, I think that was starting in like the Great Recession times. There was a lot of turnover and that some of the previous commissioners from Belhaven were interested in trying to have some possibilities for people with no price out to return.
Okay.
And if nobody ever used it, I can see why you might want to get rid of it, but at the same time, if no one ever used it, like was the exception actually causing a problem? Or was it just I'm not sure the reason to eliminate it. I guess I'm way before you on that. I'm a little confused about the wording, I guess. So when you're saying it removes the exception to the requirement that does that mean like now if you bought a house 50 miles away, now you can, or does it say, I'm unclear on that, but it seems like there's a double negative, I guess.
So removing that exception, so if you do buy a house, currently, if you went and you moved to Sacramento and you bought a house, but you're on the legacy list, if you came back, you would be still, even though you bought a house in Sacramento, based on these rules, you would be considered a first-time home buyer still.
Oh, I see, okay.
So that is the current exception that we propose to remove.
Okay, and that's coming from staff or some other feedback?
It's staff driven, yes, these are staff proposed guidelines or revisions.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's currently in the BMR guidelines, we propose to remove this exception.
Okay. Yeah.
I was gonna say, is it purposely on section 5.4 that 9.1.4 is missing? I just couldn't find it. And then the same thing on section 5.5, which states 10.3, but the section is not in there. So
Yes, I apologize for that. This is kind of a hybrid housing commission staff and city council staff report. The 9.4 is not in the current BMR guidelines. 9.1.4 is one of the proposed guidelines that we are adding. And if you can,
and this will be with the update that you will have.
as part of the update,
That's
I'll be more than happy to show you on that last. If you see 9.1.4, that is a new proposed, on the right-hand column, there's the proposed section, 9.1.4. That's where staff is proposing within 90 days of notice, the BMR sale price must be determined. And so that is in reference to
to
5.4, that is correct.
So I have a comment, who is gonna be protecting the more buyers? Because I remember when just so that everybody knows, I am BMO recipient. And I was told that the person who was doing the job many years ago,
Okay.
I was told that all the houses would be the same. But when I moved in, it was all linoleum and cheap carpeting, and I asked the developers, I'll pay extra for the hardwood floors because we had a dog and, just kind of like, so sorry, this is the way that you can't change, you can't do anything. But I was told like, people that everything, but when you buy a house, you cannot see other people's houses, you don't know. You have no idea if it's the same or not. And evidently, everybody is different except for mine. You see what I'm saying? So who protects the BMR buyers? Because we were told one thing and we got something else. And it took me 5 years to earn enough money to put in hardwood floors. The problem was that it wasn't expensive to put in hardwood floors. What was expensive was taking out all that linoleum, because you know how they put like, glue or whatever, and they have to like drill it and break it apart. That was very costly. That was probably like triple. So if I was able to do the hardwood floors in the beginning, just like everybody else, I would have to pay so much money to take out the linoleum. It was very, very difficult. They had to do the drill to break it apart. And they have to scrape up the glue, I don't know what, the cement or whatever, that it was extremely expensive, but that's number one thing, is that who will protect the BMO recipient, because we told one thing when we moved in, something else, and of course we cannot see all the other houses, so how can you tell that it's the same or not, you understand?
Understood.
That's
Completely understood, and we have an answer. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll go back to that.
I think it's 5152.
Yes. 5.1, sections 5.1 and 5.2 specify that it must be comparable design, comparable square footage, amenities, those type of things. So as part of the new project, you can see that we specifically broke it down. The first two lines, developer notices 180 days prior to building inspection. If no building inspection, 180 days, city to inspect the unit within 60 days. So as part of that inspection, what the inspector, whether it be a building inspector or city staff, if no building inspection is required, is to make sure that it sees those, it looks for those things. In other words,
Sure. I was assuming that was.
Part of the building plan.
it's part of the building, part of it is part of the building plan, and if it doesn't, then what happens is, number one, they won't give it final CFO or TCO. And then secondly, we will not write that certifying letter to say that this BMR unit meets all the city's requirements. And so if the city doesn't write that certifying letter, then none of the below will happen until it goes back to meeting the requirements of section 5.1 and 5.2, which are the comparable requirements. And so I don't know what happened with your unit, however,
There weren't two units and we had exactly the same, we had the same problem, and we had like linoleum and tiles, and when it's all glued in, it was just so, the other family chose not to do it, but we chose to do it. It was just, it wasn't, the wood was not the problem, it's just taking out, the carpet was not bad, but the tile was just so much work. It was.
Yes, again, I don't know what that happened, but we're really trying to ensure that,
This person. who's doing a
Understood.
good job of saying, oh,
you know,
you know, what I mean, what am I supposed
I
to
think they do, if it's your building department's formal recommendation or professional opinion, that they have the control via occupancy, that's a pretty big hammer. Not being able to occupy the whole building is, I mean, it's like the death knell as a project manager, if you build something and you can't move people in.
you rent
So
out.
you have a huge hammer, if that kind of holds up, and there's no way to.
Yeah.
And that was actually applied in the previous, the inspector saw that it wasn't like appliances. So that unit did not receive final,
That being said, though, I mean, for the most part, that comparable language is because you do see like super high-end units being built, and there's some
Well-
sort of comparable factor. And San Francisco has decent language, because you know, they have penthouses on the top of those huge tall buildings you see on the freeways, and the VMRs are not the same as the penthouses, but they do have to be very nice and comfortable.
yes,
In some, for some definition of comparable, which is usually not exactly the same. So I think that there's a little wiggle room.
Yeah, no, there were people in our neighborhood decided to do their upgrade. That's different, you know, that's different, right? Because we go see the showroom, this is what you get, and it's what you will, you know, you don't get, right? So with us, it's more like, wait, what we didn't get was what in the showroom, but other people, of course, you know, they go with zero, whatever appliances, whatever we spend in that.
Yeah.
That's their profit, that's different.
maybe not guaranteed Viking ranges or.
No, it's not like that, but, so I want to talk about price guidelines. So I found something interesting is that when we normal people, probably most of you normal people, when you buy homes, it's usually based on how much is it per square footage. So let's say Menlo Park is like, whatever, $1,200 per square foot, something like that, right? I don't know, I'm just making this up. Yeah, I think I heard it somewhere. But with BMR, it's based on how many bedrooms. The problem is, when we were family of 4, I have 3 children with me, that's 4 people, right? So I allowed to have any number of bedrooms up to 4 bedrooms. And so we were offered this house that the developer used the 4th room, it's not the 4th bedroom, but the 4th room is like an office space. It's small, it's like a closet, like 25 by 25. It's small, it's tiny, right? But they said that if you want to make it a bedroom, they can make the bedroom by just putting a door. So because we're a family of 4, the city decided that is going to be a 4th bedroom. And so my house at 1,700 square feet was more expensive than the other BMR house, which was 2,400 square feet, 3 bedroom. Remember, you don't get to choose the model. Depending on different models, right? We just say, okay, this is, your name is on the list next, and this is what you will get. The 2,400 square feet belonged to the other BMR person. It was like 60,000, and for me, 60,000 is a lot of money, because, you know, it was poor, like I was dirt poor, right? So, you know, and you talk about between like 280 to, 350,000, that's like a huge difference. We're not talking about millions, right? This like years ago. So what I'm saying is that I was told that it's based on the bedroom. He said, well, you need a 3 bedroom. I don't know about it. I don't care about the 4. I don't care about the 4 bedroom because it's cheaper. But it turns out that family paid less money with the biggest square footage, like 500 foot bigger, just because it was a 3 bedroom. So because their 3 bedrooms are bigger than my 4 bedrooms, my 4 bedrooms are small, and straight to the 4th bedroom is not even considered like a bedroom. Most of the people around have the same whatever design they use as an office. or an extra closet if they have a lot of clothes. You see what I'm saying? The predicament is that for the people who didn't have, make a lot of money, that was just a huge stretch. And to tell you the truth, I almost didn't get that house because even if it was $60,000 more, 67, than the other BMR house. I almost didn't qualify for the loan because I was that poor. You understand? So I don't know how you determine, I know you determine by bedrooms, but if the bedrooms are not comfortable, even if it's even smaller, the 4-bedroom is even smaller than the 3-bedroom, then there is something wrong there. Because, you understand, it's like a 1,700, I got a 1,700 square feet home, but I was paying more than somebody else who was having a 2,400, 500. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just wanting to say that you should put in consideration when you look at these homes because, the developer will, if they have to give up something, they're not gonna give it fairly. You understand? If they have to give up a 4-bedroom home, they're not gonna give you a 3,000 square foot home or 2,500 square foot home. They're gonna, it's gonna be different for us people. I'm just saying.
I think they're built per ordinance, but they will build per ordinance. So
They will
the
build
stronger
per
your ordinance,
ordinance, but
the more protective it is for the city, that's probably better. It seems like most of this is giving the end user and city more control. Yeah, that sounds like.
that's certainly part of it. And also, but to talk about your square footage, one of the things is they may designate BMR units, but as part of the process, it is the role of city staff if it's not right. If, let's say 100-bedroom, 100 units is being proposed and there are 52 bedrooms, 25 1-bedroom and 25 studios. And from a BMR perspective, they just want to do their 15%, we propose 15 studios. That's where the city would push back, as the similar square footages, similar mix. And so, that's where also, the inspections and just, part of the process of designating which BMR units are what is already in the guidelines. In regards to yours, we can maybe look at square footage, but
I'm just saying that I was not able to convince the person before you, and they said, why don't you just make this a 3-bedroom? Because I still pay the same as the other BMR family. I get less square footage. I still get the same 3-bedroom, even though I have 3 children. My daughter can sleep with me, we always share a bedroom always, since she was grown up. So for us, we don't care about the 4th bedroom, leave it as whatever you want to call it, like an office space or something, don't put a door in. And because they decided to put a door in, they said, you get a 4-bedroom, and so now the price is higher. That's what's the problem. And I begged them, I said, please, don't make it. It's an option that was given to everybody else. The normal people, the regular buyers, but it was not an option for me.
If I could, what I see in lots of cities is that there's some minimum number of units before you do the BMR route. Because otherwise you do have this issue where you have these one-offs. It's very hard to administer a program where you have, within a single project, you have 2 BMRs, and it sounds like they're vastly different. And it's not being consistent, it's not consistent, so, like my other comments were kind of about like, as you start to get a handle of like the status and take inventory of what is going on in the city, like, it would be really interesting to know, like, if all the BMR units that are kind of under the, where the city's a custodian in some way of, like, how many of these are one-offs? And like, what does that mean for the end user? If, I think what it means for the city is very hard to administer.
I mean, looking back, it's not a big deal, but at the time, I was so poor. I was only working part-time because I had to raise my children, that I went to so many places. I couldn't, even the VA, I'm a veteran. And even with them, they make a lot of exceptions. I wasn't even going to get the loan at all. I was going to lose, after 20 years on the waivers, I was just about to lose it. just because of that reason.
Yeah, I don't know what transpired there, but we do have household range sizes too. So a 3-bedroom, a 4-person family can qualify for it.
No,
You know,
that
we
is,
talk about the smallest.
that is
and
true.
so, but
But the other family only have 2 girls, so the mom and the 2 girls, that's why they had the 3 bedrooms, right? So that was for them, but I was forced to put in this one, which is okay. But the thing is that the 4th bedroom is so tiny that, I mean, it was an option for the developer. Why wouldn't it be an option for me to say, just make it a 3 bedroom, so I don't have to pay that extra $16,000, dollars, which for me, it was like make it or break it to get a loan
For
at the
sure.
time,
Yeah.
that's
But that
what I'm saying.
variability is an issue. So you
It
see
is.
with other cities, they have a minimum number of units before it's really an option to do the BMR. So as a commission, the bias so far has been for many years to just build the units and not do something like collect a fee in lieu of. But with that, all this stuff, there's kind of trade-offs, because I think the city doesn't necessarily have a lot of understanding of its own portfolio, because it's, if there's 200 units, there's like, 167 different
Well,
ones or something like that.
We only had two BMO for that whole.
No, but I'm talking about the city's portfolio as a whole.
Yeah.
And when I've looked at it previously, I've been like, oh, that would be really hard to
Wrap their arms around.
yeah, and to
An issue with
protect
a
and
lot of
to,
cities.
yeah.
Just kind of veering off, but yes, it's like, how many 3-bedroom at 60% AMI do we have?
Well, I don't think it's that far away from the heart of the matter though, because if you're having to do this much control, it's like you're solving for something that's going on there, which is, I think, like, probably a lot of this is coming forth because of specific instances where, maybe the outcome wasn't what we wanted. Because this is highly detailed and specific, and seems like maybe a little reactive at some places to try to close some loopholes that we've seen.
That certainly,
If I can make that.
based on past events which have transpired, but as we move forward in the next couple of years and we do a more comprehensive review, the BMR guidelines, even in my support time, in my review, there are some things that need to be addressed, such as you made your improvements, and we need to put in wording about that, how it's calculated, so when you sell it,
The value.
you get some value based on that. So I hear what you're saying, maybe square footage versus bedroom. The only thing I can say to you is, as a 4-bedroom, when you sell it, it'll be a higher price than a 3-bedroom, because it's based on bedroom, but those are things that can be
But for
discussed
somebody who
in
doesn't
the
have money,
future.
that could make a break a person. I had to go to appeal board, and the lawyer who was representing the state of California, the VA program, turned and decided to go on my side, represent me.
Yeah.
It was hired by the,
But I think,
and
it says here that if the BMR, you're selling that BMR and it's higher.
it's not that much of a difference, because you understand, it's not that much of a difference, changing, some of the things that's cosmetic. I mean, for us people, we stay there a long time, there's no, not worry about, selling it, having a more value and things like that, right? I mean, these rooms are small, I'm not sure anybody want them except for BMR people, because I'm talking about 1,700 square feet for 4 bedrooms, and these are the main bedrooms.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not,
we're not exactly.
I think your experience is really helpful.
I mean, I'm just
But
saying
just
that from my
understand
point
how
of view,
real
like
people-
when you do this kind of thing, you make consideration that, if the BMR recipient said, okay, if this is an option given from the developer to all the other buyers, then allow the person to say, I don't want the 4th bedroom. And there's that space there, right? And don't put a door and leave it like whatever that normally, because it could make or break somebody. I almost lost that place after 20 years on the list. That's what I'm saying, is that there has to be some wiggle room, something where, you know, when somebody's on the list for so long, it's like,
There's a screen in instead of screen out, right? That's like.
I mean, the design, the developer design was not for the 4 bedrooms anyway. They just said that this is an office space, but if you want a 4th bedroom, we just put a door there. I mean, the design for them, and everybody on that who has the same design as me, they use the 4th space as just an office space. Because it's so small, it's not even like a bedroom, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I was not given that option. I begged, I said, can I just have a 3-bedroom? Because my daughter will sleep with me anyway. I mean, we lived in, all of us in the studio before, and 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, so we used to small spaces, but it made a difference in terms of pricing. The same price.
Understood.
And for 60,000, most of the folks have nothing.
So
Right?
you want a motion from us eventually on this.
Oh,
Right?
yes, yes.
So,
So your experience is duly noted.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I'm still struggling with
Okay.
removing the exception on the 50-mile away. Knowing that that was a anti-displacement, we're trying to kind of like correct what was seen as like a systematic or neighborhood issue because of the way that a lot of these subprime loans were targeted to folks of color and in certain neighborhoods, just as our previous presenter was describing, just the like rapid displacement that happened and who was impacted by you know, kind of widely discussed and proven horrible loan practices. I struggle with that, knowing that that was supposed to remedy something, and that there really are no other specific remedies in this program that kind of try to redress this really specific inequity that really has different impact on race and different impact on certain neighborhoods. So, with the exception of that, you know, I'm ready to move forward, but I respect that there's still public comment and other commissioners may have more questions.
I have a question. In here it states that there's a legacy list that's going to be moving to a different format. I don't know, I lost my computer.
I think it's the lottery system, right? I think there's moving to the
Yeah,
lottery system.
it talks about the is going to be not retired, I'm paraphrasing now, but
It will be updated continually, with the,
here, BMR purchase legacy list as part of the update, working requirements have been included, and eventually that legacy list is no longer used, isn't? I'm sorry, maybe it's.
yes, that is the point, in that a legacy, we will continue to market any BMR sales to the legacy list until everyone has had an opportunity to look at homes or purchase a home, or they didn't respond. Because in actuality, I found in my experience, it's, if you go with the lottery, because the legacy list is kind of like, I noted that there's somebody there since 1997, but what happens is in any waiting list, especially buying a house, you get this letter saying, oh, you have an opportunity to buy a house. You have to decide within, 30 days or something, but they're not actively looking for a house. So it puts the person the applicant in a kind of, it's a weird conundrum, saying you have this opportunity for the house, but you gotta scramble to get it. While if we went to maybe this is a personal preference, is if everyone is looking to buy a house, that's where maybe a lottery might be best served. So once it comes on Redfin, everyone knows we have this BMR unit, and if you're looking for a house, it might better better serve those who are looking.
But still.
But we will go, we will go through the legacy list. And we'll just update it. If they don't respond, or if they've moved out of state, or their circumstances have changed, that they don't need to be on the legacy list, let's remove them and work with those who are truly, I shouldn't say truly interested, but who want to continue to participate in the city's BOMAR program.
How are you gonna determine that if they've been in the list since 1997?
Well, we will send out something saying, are you still interested in being on the city's legacy list? If you are, is this information still valid? Please update your information. And if they don't respond within 30 days, then they're subject to removal. That's part of the proposal, to update the legacy
Do
list.
you ask them to update the information every year?
We stepped away from that. It went from a waiting list where they paid $15 to stay on the list. And so in 2021, the council specifically said, to avoid that annual fee.
Oh, that's a terrible thing, I tell you that.
And so that's where we're trying to update the legacy list.
But I will tell you the problem with me, of course, this experience, was that because when you be poor, you have to move so many times. Because, you know, if the landlord raising, right? Rentals, whatever amount, then you have to move, you keep moving, so in 1 year, you could be moving 3 times. And so in those days, I remember in the 1990s, there was no internet, there was no email, this AOL just only happened like late 1990s. You understand? It's hard. So when you people send out letter, we're not there. You understand? We know that. We remember things like, okay, change address for schools, for work, for credit cards, things like that, for banks. But you don't think about changing it for BMR, because when you're waiting on the waiting list for so long, you completely forget about it, because it's like, okay, so who do I need to call now? It's not like now where everything is electronically. And that's why I was dropping the list like a whole bunch of times, just because I was forced to move, I couldn't afford. So I had to move from a 2-bedroom to a 1-bedroom, and then later to a studio for all of us. It was just a terrible time.
And so are they, how do we, I guess that brings up, how do we go about, notifying people? That must be a real challenge.
It was a challenge. That's why I was dropping the list, because they said, oh, yeah, we tried to contact you and you didn't respond. So I didn't know. I knew.
Yeah, I think the other thing, it's from 1997, and you gave that as an example. I'm thinking people probably have moved or whatnot. But, regardless, I don't know how you guys will be doing that. I do have 2 other questions, just clarification questions. Section 7.4, you're saying, the gross income up to 120, but then you mentioned 30%, 50%, and 60%. Is that, does this mean that you're considering 30, 50, and 60 up to 120? Or only a
Yeah,
hundred?
no, it's further clarifying. It's just saying, instead of saying up to 120, it's breaking it down into those individual income categories, but it's still up for all households up to 120. It's just providing a little more clarity on those income groups.
Thank you. My last question, 8.3, you're saying there's a 30-year mortgage of 3%. Who defines the 3%, and can it be lower than 2%, like maybe 2%, depending on the 7.4, where you fall in the income category? Is that, how would that go? I'm just,
The 3% is because we still want the homeowner to have some equity in the unit, some investment. So we've said that 3%. Others have 5%, but we wanted to make sure that it wasn't an outrageous amount. But we still wanted the homeowner to have some equity. So that's the 3% requirement. Yeah.
and that would be the down payment, right?
Yes, that would be the down payment.
So, for example, if Juanita, I think it was Juanita and the development the presentation that just happened. If they were to be funded and let's say a resident wanted to apply for a BMR, they would be able to utilize some funds for a down payment for this, would that, no?
No, that's strictly a rental program to buy down the rent of BMR units.
Got it.
Strictly rental. It has, it doesn't involve ownership units.
Got it. I just want to understand the 3% because then we go back to the very extremely low income. How would they be able to meet that 3% depending on the amount of the?
Well, I don't think we have any extremely low income purchase units at that. It's mostly moderate income.
So we would never, I mean, we would advertise it, but never really have a very low, like, I'm just trying to connect.
Yeah, there's some,
And maybe we can talk about it.
yeah, maybe we can.
Yeah, I don't wanna-
I can explain further, but it's mostly moderate income because. of
For moderate income for the purchase and that's a very low and extremely low and now acutely low are for.
Generally so, when it comes to affordable housing. Yes, you're correct. Yeah,
Thank you. I don't want to call the meeting.
okay.
No, I'm just wondering if you have anything, but I want to go on to see whether they have the comments.
We do not have public comment.
So we have any other questions?
Oh, sorry, thank you, I was gonna just mention that we did receive, an email, from a member of the public, which was forwarded to the commission,
Listen, just.
and we do have a copy of it here as well. You want-
Yeah, I can quickly address,
I apologize, my laptop died, otherwise I would display it, but I'm on this computer now and I don't have access to it.
so she supports using the VMR administrator, so we're moving forward with that. Having a buyer hire their own real estate agent. As I previously mentioned, I think
We do.
it,
5.4.
yes, but having a, don't want to introduce too many parties into the BMR sales process. It's something we can consider, but potentially then you have the BMR administrator, the developer gets their own agent, and the buyer has their own agent. It could get complicated. And again, the city has chosen a BMR administrator who's quickly learning the city's BMR program process. In addition, they have experience working with first-time home buyers. So based on those two factors, feel that a buyer would be best served through the BMR administrator. So that's staff's response. And regarding the third, I'll have to get back to her to understand that question. I don't quite understand why the last two of the legacy list.
I think she's talking about 9.1.7 and 9.1.9. I was looking at the legacy document.
Oh, yeah,
She sent me an email too, our house key came up and not the other one. She said at Google Menlo Park, Legal Market Rate Housing Administrator, she sent it to me and to Vice Chair Walker. And that only for the house key came up, so that's what she was saying, and it's on my email, it's different.
That's section 8.2, yeah, she's talking, the city will use the lottery in the event the legacy listed is exhausted. Or if there are two or fewer legacy households eligible for the unit based on their household size, then you would use a lottery.
that was more to expand the buyer pool instead of having two people
Oh, right,
who they may or may not, but you just want to have backups. You want to have multiple households eligible. And so to have two, we'd probably go through their priority, but we just want to make sure that if two of them can't buy or for whatever reason, then we'd have to start that process, the lottery process up again. It's kind of like a cost benefit, if you will, or
So would the people on the legacy list would have, if there's one or two people, they would have priority, but if they can't, then you would go to a lottery, is that?
I guess we could mark it at the same time, but it was just to ensure that if those two legacy households, but that's something we can
You're
Review.
looking to make sure you can move the unit.
in a timely fashion instead of going through two legacy households and then having to do a lottery at the same time if they don't make it. So, but that's something we can revisit.
Can I ask another question that may not be on here, is that, BMR, we still have to hold the BMR home for 100 years. You know, I'll be dead.
No,
But what I'm saying
it's
is,
a 55-year resale restriction.
oh, no, I mean, I'm not talking about, what happened if a single mother dies and are the children will be thrown out the street just because?
No, the unit can be transferred. I'll be happy to talk about, the unit can be transferred as long, and they can live there as long as they're income eligible. If they are not income eligible, because it's specifically for a moderate income unit. Okay,
But it's 50 years, not 155, 55, yeah. Okay.
okay.
I think this is that it. We don't have any other comments. Okay.
I was just gonna add for Commissioner Leach. We haven't had many sale and stuff processes since we've been here, but going through a few people on the list before you find someone who isn't uncommon. So I think just having that like full end of people available, so you
Right.
have to end that was really quickly and test stuff and then test stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, you need at least 10 to get one buyer.
Oh,
Kind of,
okay.
just certain household
Yeah,
size, so things like that.
Right. Time to approve on all of it, minus 7.1. Let's see if I have a
See
second.
if it sticks.
Yeah, I'll second that.
I'll
Third that.
I'll third that.
So,
There's a motion and a second on the
To
floor.
remove
7.1, that's the
the
exception.
exception 1 to 7.1, the 50 mile.
Well, the first one does the same thing, right? The first exception was also a response to the such crisis.
So what do you say?
And the displacement that happened all in that 2008,
If you would like to keep both exceptions.
Yeah, I don't know that they've ever been used, but they're in there for a reason. It's to correct it.
So, what you say is that if it's removed,
We're
that
saying
means
we're-
that the person would not be considered a first time home buyer anymore,
And they would be, right?
or they would be.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, again, to clarify, these two exceptions are currently in the BMR guidelines. To say that, an exception, if a new buyer is to be a first time buyer, home buyer, if they were in the household. I can't read, sorry.
So I think.
These two exceptions are on the
in.
Because
Because then
we're wanting to keep them.
So they're
Yeah.
removed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're wanting, we're saying leave it as is where, the exception is. So you can say you're a first time home buyer, if I was on the waiting list and I bought a house 50 miles or more away, I get to stay on the list. And if I'm on the, purchase waiting list before 2010, I still get to stay on the list. So they were removing
Yes.
those to some.
And
little
also
use.
you have to consider like if it's a husband and wife and then they get divorced. And now the wife is out with nothing, you understand, it's just. If they had never been marked, now what would the wife do if she cannot get a BMR house for herself and her children? I mean, we have to make it accessible for some folks.
The motion is to keep these two exceptions.
The two exceptions.
Understood.
Yes. And it's been seconded by,
Second and then I'll third that.
Looking for one of
Okay.
those friends.
So, motion to keep the two exceptions, so we're
Yes.
in the guidelines.
So recommend this with keeping, but with the addition.
With the removal of
The
section
removal.
7.1.
Okay, those two exceptions.
Okay,
I got it. Okay. So we have an action, motion by Commissioner Merriman, seconded by Commissioner Fortia, is that right? To.
Seconded by Heather.
Second, excuse me, third by Commissioner Fortia.
There's just a rousing seconds and thirds and, you know.
To approve these recommended changes with the removal of
Section 7.1.
Roll call, Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner Merriman.
Yes.
Chair O'Neill,
Aye.
Commissioner Pimentel, absent, Commissioner Fortia.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Walker, absent, the motion passes 5-0 with 2 absent.
thank you very much, Housing Commission.
Thank you so much. Tomorrow meeting, council is at 6:30 also.
Yeah, and just, so a couple quick things, I know it's getting, we sent out also the commission calendar, unfortunately, it was under informational, it needs to be an action item, but the only thing is, want to confirm if the commission is able to meet the January 3rd meeting, because on one of the items will be a VMR agreement that's going to, planning commission in February, so we want to make that timeline. And then secondly, we will bring back an updated calendar. The council is meeting on January 5th to update their calendar, so potentially it won't impact, but it may, so, we will bring back an updated calendar at the next meeting. But December 5th, not January 5th, December 5th. So,
December 5th, yeah,
no, excuse me, council's meeting December 5th to talk about their 2024
so
calendar.
you want us January?
But I just want to confirm if everyone can make the January 3rd.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Is that a Tuesday?
That's a Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of the month, so January 3rd. We have a nay, okay,
Sorry, kids are out of school.
very
We
good,
are traveling, sorry.
And we won't make it.
okay. Then
I'll be here.
we'll need to ask,
Commissioner Wallace, because we had the special meeting now, we're planning on canceling the December meeting, so we want to make sure we had a January date on the books before we.
Okay, yeah.
okay. So, stay tuned, about, January 3rd, we will pull Commissioner Walker and Pimentel. And then lastly, a quick update, the housing element is making its way through. As mentioned, the council will be considering the first round of zoning updates tomorrow, November 28th. All jurisdictions are required to get their zoning in place by the end of January 2024. So the city is well on its way to doing the zoning updates to increase the densities, to be able to in the future. If all goes well on the 28th, they're gonna turn around on December 15th and hopefully approve the 28th approval. So if you're interested, mark your calendars, November 28th and December 5th are the council meetings for the council update. And the city submitted its third response to HPD about 2 weeks ago. So everyone keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Hopefully the city will receive a letter stating that we comply with state requirements. And so, but they have up to 60 days to review this third response from the city. That concludes staff updates on items and comments.
Do any individual commissioner, I think it's.
Just a question, maybe at a future meeting, you know, the element sets up a lot of work that actually has to be done.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
not like it gets approved and all that stuff happens. So your lens on what might be important on the implementation front.
For the housing commission.
We have to either discuss or think through a little,
Okay.
would be helpful, if there's anything you wanna lift up from that.
Certainly the parking lots, the redevelopment of the parking lots, thinking, we'll see if there are any relocation
There's a lot of state legislation that has passed
address.
that allows for additional zoning or CEQA exemptions and things like that, it would just be interesting to understand how that would actually play out.
Okay,
on
very good.
housing.
Yeah, maybe we'll have. Yeah, project planners present on next, it's probably more work implementing all those programs than it was to actually prepare that housing element.
I haven't got that.
Yeah.
And I think the city has a role to play in making sure the sites are actually developable. And so the timely, keeping moving forward on all of that. Every site I see as a previous developer, has lots of issues. And any one of them could stop you for years, so there needs to be, kind of, continued work on all fronts there. Otherwise, they won't be built, and then the next cycle comes up, if you wanna reuse the site, you have to explain why you can reuse the site, why it's a reasonable place to develop if it didn't develop the first time, but that governmental constraints to housing piece is pretty live action when I look at the sites that have been identified, so.
Good.
Thank you.
So do we have any recommendation for future agenda items? Besides the bringing in.
Yeah, January is the BMR agreement, a revised calendar that the Housing Commission will take action upon. So those are two in January. In the future, we can talk about housing element program implementation. Those are future.
So, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. It is now 8:28 PM.
Okay. Thank you all. Hope everyone had a good day.
Yeah.